How's it going, everybody? I want to be really quick. I made this video and I realized I was talking for 45 minutes and I needed to simplify it. So I'm going to try to be way quicker with this than the other one. Of course, you didn't see the other one. So basically, the video that I want to talk about, is what I want to talk about in this video is how a digital audio workstation and a recording studio are similar. And really, technically, the only difference is and when you're working in your DAW, I like to change the names, is that you're working with three things in your DAW that would be in the control room of a recording studio. They're just virtual. And the three things would be, you're working with the tape machine, the mixing console, and the outboard gear, because that's what's in the control room. So in the digital audio workstation, where you got your tracks by default, when you open up your digital audio workstation, I call it a VDRS, virtual digital recording studio, is your VDRTs, virtual digital recording tracks, or tape machine. So you just got to build them. That's all. That's the only difference. There's not set like in a real studio where there's they have fixed like a 24 track tape machine or 16 track. There's fixed like a 16 track tape machine or 16 track studio. You only have 16 tracks. That's limited. In today's world, 24 tracks is limited. So with that being said, at least in digital, in a DAW, most DAWs are not limited. You can have 200 tracks. Now, why would you want to have that many tracks? I don't know, but at least you can have the option. You're not limited. It's just based on how much space you have on your hard drive. That's really, other than that, that's it. So you're starting at the tape machine. But the great thing about digital audio workstations, I like to call them VDRSs, virtual digital recording studios, and working with a VDRT, virtual digital recording tracks, or working with virtual digital recording tracks, is this: you have a ton more ability to edit all those tracks any way you see fit, and the recall is instant, and the list goes on and on. We've all seen it, whatever DAW you use, Pro Tools, Ableton Live, Cakewalk, Cubase, Reasons, Reaper, whatever you're using, 90% of all of them have pretty much a lot of the same similar functions. Some DAWs have more functions than others, and some DAWs are more appealing to certain people than others. But they generally all can edit. They have so many editing capabilities that a regular tape machine cannot do. And I think this is the reason why all commercial studios realize we better invest in a Pro Tools rig or something. Everyone had to, because they realized tape machines are just not that they sound great, but they're so limited in their ability to edit. And I think this is a undisputable, non-debatable subject. I think everyone agrees it's way more efficient to work in a DAW. And then that's not always the debatable part is the debatable part is the AD to DA converter and the sound. Other than that, so the second part will be, as you build your tracks, the DAW builds the console. So the only other difference is, in the real console, the console's fixed. The channels are fixed. The output section is fixed. How many channels you got and how many auxiliary sends you got and buses are sent, that's all you got. That's all you can work with. In DAW world, some allow you to do up to 8, 9, 10, 24 auxiliaries or whatever. Some allow you to do up to 32 buses. But most of those DAWs, they by default, they try to keep you limited so it'll be more realistic. So most of them will say, well, you can do a lot of times when you build your tracks, you won't see any auxiliaries or buses because you have to literally go and create them. Other than that, and they might have up to a maximum amount of auxiliaries and buses you can create. But You just got to create those buses. And you want to create those buses to do the same way you want to mix in your console, like the way you mix on a real console. So that's the only other difference. The last thing would be plugins. Instead of having all your plugins, which is outboard gear, I like to call them patch-ins or inserts, because in the real world you have to patch in outboard gear. That's why I like to call them patches. I don't know where they came up with the plug-in, like you're literally plugging in a piece of gear, when really technically you're inserting a piece of gear in your DAW. That's where they gotta change it to inserts or patch-ins, because that's what you in the real world you're patching in gear. In DAW world, you're inserting a piece of gear just by using a mouse. So plugins, I don't know where we got that term plugins, but we've just been calling them plugins. But technically, so all your outboard gear will be in a rack in the real studio, but in your DAW, they're just on your hard drive. You just got to tell your DAW where are all your patch-ins, where are your inserts, your plugins. They're on my hard drive in this section. Tell the DAW to go that section. That's it. Other than that, you just gotta tell the DAW how to route the signals input and out in and out of that DAW. You just gotta literally tell it, and it will do it. The audio interface will react according to the ability of your audio interface. It will react to the inputs and outputs. That's it. So basically, a DAW is nothing but a virtual recording studio control room. So it's basically a VDRS CM, or Control R, CR. So a VDRS CR, a virtual digital recording studio control room. I'm laughing at all these crazy acronyms I'm making up, right? Because that's really what they really are. Like I'm working with my VDRTM, which stands for virtual digital recording tape machine, and I'm setting up my VDRTs, my virtual digital recording tracks. The tape machine and the tracks they're the same thing. I can create as many tracks in my tape machine. It's a virtual tape machine, and I'm building all my tracks, except I'm just adding the VDR in front of it. Virtual digital recording. So maybe should we call it virtual digital recording, or VDRS, or should we just call it VRS, virtual recording studio? Should we call it VDRS, virtual digital recording studio, or should we call it DRS, digital recording studio? It's just a digital recording studio, but it's virtual because it's in your software. So to sum up the video, technically, so when you open up your DAW, because we're already calling it a digital audio workstation, but we just call them DAWs. When you open it up, you're working at your tape machine, and then when you record and do everything in your tape machine, now you're ready to mix and all that, and insert all your plugins in the mixing console. Everything's routed because the tape machine, as you build your tracks, it builds the console. So really, that's why, the same thing, your tape machine in Studio World is connected to the console via the patch bay. The two are still connected. But if you're using a console and you're using a DAW, it's just connected through the patch bay to the interface, which goes into the DAW. But it's connected to the console. Well, DAW World, they did the same thing. So as you build your tracks, they build the console. The only thing is, now the times, a lot of these DAWs, you have to build the additional stuff like the sins, the auxiliary sins, or the bus groups and stuff like that. You just have to add them. It already added the tracks as you build your tracks. And sometimes you can build as many tracks, it'll build as many channels in the console as you build tracks. It just got to build your auxiliary sin channels and your bus channels. But the master bus channel, that's why it always says master, is always automatically default to go to the master, unless you change the routing. So a lot of times in a real console, you just change the routing by changing the patch with patch cables. In the DAW world, you just tell the computer to redirect the signal through the audio interface by telling it, okay, I want the inserts, inputs are going to come to my interface, or my outputs are going to go here through my interface. That's really the difference. You just got to tell it and build it. So that's really the similarity. So really, that's technically what you're working in the control room in a recording studio, where you're working in a virtual control room, so VCR. But we can't really say VCR because then we're thinking we're talking about the old VCR, video cassette recorder, right? But in DAW world, VCR would be virtual control room. So why not just call it a VDRS CR? Because that's the three things. Those are the three main components in a control room in a studio: is a console, all the outboard gear, and the tape machine. By default, you already both systems need monitors, studio monitors. Both systems need microphones and cables and a place to and a space. So that's why it's not really included in a DAW, because you can't really because your computer monitor doesn't make sound. Your computer monitor doesn't have some have built-in microphones, but really, some have built-in speakers. But for the most part, you won't, so we're not gonna include that as a whatever. You have to get your, so most of the time, what are we doing? We're getting a interface, some sort of converter. We're going to get some sort of studio monitors and headphones. We're going to have some place to record the space we're going to record in. Maybe we have to acoustically treat it and everything else. But other than that, your DAW is basically a control room. It's your tape machine, it's your mixing console, and it's your outboard gear, all in one. So that's summed it up. Yeah, I think I did a better job than a 45-minute video that I did on the last one. So that's basically how the two compare. So now the thing is, and the other video that I want to talk about is, now that I've got this understanding of the concept of how they compare, I want to use a video to compare how, once you learn the basis of everything, the mixing consoles, tape machines, and outboard gear and consoles and all that, once you learn the basis of those, you can work in any DAW, you can work on any mixing console, you can use any outboard gear. So I want to talk about that in another video, or I might talk about that in the live stream coming up on Sunday, how you can work on any mixing console, because then you'll realize they're all similar. Everything is based, DAWs are basically based off the control room of recording studios. And that's pretty much it. So, yeah, I'm done. We'll see you next one.